Cats are funny old things. They are the most nonchalant creatures you could possibly own as a pet. In fact, after time it feels like they own you. They wake you up early in the morning, demand their food, and then bugger off outside for the rest of the day. But I can't help but like them. But also can't be the only one who wonders what it is they actually get up to during the daytime. Developer Double Dagger Studios have created a game that goes some way to potentially answering that question with its Untitled Goose Game vibes, and inspired by lead developer Matt Wood's own cats, Mario and Roxy. Is this one big city, or is it a little bit I can't say it. You get the idea. Well, let's find out. Little Kitty Big City is all about excellent visual storytelling. It starts out with the feline dangling from his windowsill, just relaxing and enjoying the day, when unfortunately he slips off the edge, makes an onomatopoeic departure from his lovely resting place, and dangles from a crow until he eventually finds himself at street level, the wrong way up inside a bin. It's the perfect beginning to this adventure, with the simple premise of simply wanting to return home. After wiggling the analog sticks, you jump out of the bin, and that's it. You're free to roam in the city. Now you find out very quickly that there are a few things this cat doesn't like. One of those is dotted all over the place, that being water. Accidentally step into it and you'll be greeted with a very fitting sound. Now I mentioned Untitled Goose Game at the beginning there because this really does feel like the cat version of that game, and I mean it in the best possible way. And it all starts with the controls. Now animation doesn't usually come into gameplay, but I think it deserves a mention. They've thought very carefully about the way you control this cat. The left stick moves it around, simple enough, but you can perform tight turns, even chasing your tail. And there are several emotes, so that you can do cat things. Now aside from this, you can hold down the B button, which brings up the little picture of the paws, so that you can target your jumps. I was worried that this was going to be a little bit clunky, but if you just tap that button, then it will hop up the nearest edge. And actually, it was a really clever design. Now, fundamental to this choice is also the fact that the level designs don't have those really annoying white edges on all the objects. You know what I mean? When you're playing something like Tomb Raider and everything that you can climb on has basically been painted by someone because gamers aren't smart enough to figure out that you can go to these places, right? Well, not with Little Kitty Big City. Here it's an open world and you're left to figure out where you can and can't go by that age-old gameplay mechanic, exploration, and hopefully in turn enjoyment. You're also not alone within this world. You very early meet a crow who has a little bit of an attitude problem and seems to be a bit of a Del boy, but does go some way to helping you out, gifting you your first fish. And it's through these fish that you level up your climbing abilities. Much like Breath of the Wild, you have a stamina meter, measured here in paws, which allows you to climb up the ivy, which is dotted about the environment. Aside from sprinting around, chasing your tail and jumping, you can also squeeze under tight spaces. And when you're not chasing shinies for the crow who sets you off to find 25 of those early on, you'll bump into a bunch of other animals around the world, and this cat actually talks, which initially took me by surprise. I thought it was going to be one of those silent protagonists, bar the occasional purr. But no, there is dialogue for each character, although it's not voice acted, and it's actually very funny. And you'll be carrying out tasks such as retrieving the missing ducklings, but most of them are actually situational. What I mean by that is, say you walk under a fence and you find yourself face to face with a fella who's about to do some artwork, and a little prod will pop up on the screen, a little nudge if you will, saying something like become an artist. It doesn't take Sherlock Cat to figure out that if you just walk through the paint pots, you can then create a lovely work of art and you'll have reached that little achievement. It's a nice early indicator to the type of experience you've got as far as tertiary activities go, because these are everywhere, and often they're not signposted so obviously. What it does is it encourages you to be mischievous. I climbed up onto a side and I saw a few paint pots here and there, but I was on the task of looking for different shiny collectibles, so I wasn't thinking too much about it. But I'd been playing the game long enough that when I see paint pots, something comes over me and I find myself tipping them over. I knocked them over and they fell on top of a car, and I quickly unlocked an achievement called No Parking as the paint splashed across its roof. Now, to mix things up from this this old man's perspective, while playing through, I was joined by a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, my kids. And my word, did they unlock some things that I didn't even know existed. The first of those is the ability to pounce on birds. But every time I tried to do it, they just flew away. Kids being kids, well, they tripped over a pedestrian, stole their bagel, and then used that as a lure for the birds. I was well impressed. Aside from the achievements and side quests, the other activities involve taking naps. Yeah, there are lots of different nap spots dotted around, some of them easier to find, some of them that you need to unlock, but by far one of the biggest pastimes will be collecting hats. Now there are a number of different hats for you to find, some of them from those little side activities, but others can be purchased from vending machines, which are run by that crow. That's where the shiny collectibles come in, which provide a nice little distraction and something to make you search every nook and cranny. In fact, Little Kitty Big City is actually quite a vertical experience, which is also facilitated by a control system which tries to lock you to narrow edges. So if you have to make your way across a small gap, tightrope style, you can still sprint around and not feel like you're going to fall off too easily. The controls aren't always perfect though, and part of that is to do with the camera. Sometimes it will find itself stuck behind scenery. And while I do enjoy the control scheme, adjusting the height of your jump, that can feel a little hit and miss at times. But I have to say, it doesn't matter what age you are, this one's all about enjoyment and fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously. I just wish it was a little bit longer, as we'll see in the value section, and there are a couple of other things to talk about in visuals and performance. Still, gameplay wise, it's very fun. I give it 18 out of 20. Controls, they're not quite as good, but still are very usable. They score 16 out of 20. I did mention recently that the Unity engine hasn't had a great track record on Switch, and in some ways Little Kitty Big City goes against that. The animation's exceptional, the visual style works really nicely while being quite simplistic, but then we get to performance. Now, as my daughter assured me countless times during the review period, Dad, I do not care about performance at all. The game's really good. And she's right, but some people do care about it. And on Nintendo Switch, it can drop down quite a bit, but that's not the only issue. We did encounter a couple of quite severe bugs, one of which saw my son glitch through the floor and he was unable to get out even when we reloaded the game, so we actually had to restart from scratch. And I also managed to glitch through the floor in one area, but didn't have any other bugs aside from that. With all of this said though, the frame rates generally feel okay. That's more to do with the fact that it's quite a slow-paced experience, but I would like to see some more work on performance. The soundtrack is perfectly fitting. But what is the absolute standout here are the sound effects of those cats. They sound brilliant. I even noted the very small detail of having some cat sound effects as the movement sounds in the menu. Back on the visuals, there's a great mapping system here. It's super simple but points you to everything that you're currently working towards, and no, none of the animals are voice acted. Right now, I give visuals and performance 14 out of 20. Sound and audio scores 18 out of 20. So Little Kitty Big City is going to set you back £22.49, but it currently has a discount of 10% until May the 16th. If you were rushing through it, you could definitely finish it in about an hour and a half. But finish using air quotes, because what that really means is you've gotten back home and then it gives you free roam to go back and finish all the quests, which will take you closer to around 5 hours. It's a little bit more expensive than Untitled Goose Game, which is around the same length, and that also features multiplayer, but it's still a very pleasant experience that made me laugh numerous times. But for some, the price might just be a tad high. I give value 14 out of 20. I've certainly enjoyed my time with Little Kitty Big City. Perhaps its title should be Little Kitty Averagely Sized Segment of City, but I don't think it has quite the same ring to it. It's enjoyable and I think you'll have a good time. It gets a SwitchUp score of 80%. Thanks to all of you. I hope this review has been of some help. I'm sure I've forgotten something. Let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to answer those as quickly as possible. You may have noticed some new Joy-Cons in this video. My goodness, aren't they lovely? I'll pop links and all the saving and whatnot down in the description. But yeah, they were sent to us this week and I was like, oh, shiny lights. So shiny. I must use them. They're from a company called FunLab. So there we have it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. As always, a big thanks to our Patreons and our members and all of you that enjoy the content. All that's left to say is, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!